Hi there, Mr. Mayor. Hey, hello. How are you doing? How are you? That's right. There you go.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. And thank you all for being here on such a beautiful day in Baltimore, but also a very important day as we make some important announcements. Before we begin this morning, I want to recognize our Congressman Mfume, who has joined us this morning, Reverend Jerome Stevens, Representative Senator Ben Cardin, who's been with me all morning today so far. City Administrator Chris Shorter, Councilman Chris Burnett, since we are in the 8th District. I think he gave out passes to his colleagues to come over this morning. All right. Councilman James Torrance, Councilwoman Odette Ramos, Councilman Ryan Dorsey, Councilman Robert Stokes, and Councilman Zeke Cohen. Also, we have with us this morning our Deputy Mayor for Economic Development, Ted Carter. I know Ted's around here somewhere. Ted's back there. Our Chief Recovery Officer, Shemai Kearney, also known as Mommy Warbucks. Department of Housing and Community Development Commissioner Alice Kennedy, Director of the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, Shantae Jackson, our Planning Director, Chris Ryer, Annie Milley, Executive Director of Live Baltimore. So if no one has, you don't have an I Love City Life pen, make sure you get it from her before you leave today. Our Finance Director, Henry Raymond, Deputy City Solicitor, Ebony Thompson, Janet Abrams, President and CEO of Baltimore HABC, Patrick Stewart, Regional Vice President of Penrose LLC, Mansour Malik, Vice President of Development for the NHP Foundation, Yolanda Jiggets, Executive Director of Park Heights Renaissance, Dana Henson, Vice President of the Henson Development Company, my good friend Mark Washington of the Coldstream Homestead Montebello Community Corporation, and a whole flock, as we like to say, of representatives from Build, Reverend Connors and Bishop Stevens. And last but not least, Mr. Arthur Cummings, a longtime resident and beneficiary of our Housing Upgrades to Benefit Seniors program. And thank you all for being here today. As you all know, we all know, Baltimore continues to be plagued by the issues of vacant housing instability, and housing loss, issues that have been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Vacant properties reduce property values, increase blight attract crime, and pose a nuisance to neighboring properties, and negatively impacting the quality of life of Baltimoreans. We are here today to show that we are committed to addressing these issues and are operationalizing that commitment. This is one of the most consequential undertakings of my administration, and we will use everything, every resource at our disposal to eliminate blight and ensure that our residents have access to resources that will keep longtime residents in their homes and foster new home ownership in Baltimore, especially for the black middle class. I am here to share with you all, first today, the results of our internal review of Baltimore's vacant housing stock and to announce my plan for investment in housing-related initiatives. As I said before, when I issued my directive for the 30-day review of the city's vacant property strategy, we are taking the results of this 30-day review to develop an ambitious and comprehensive set of goals to reduce the number of vacants, both through tackling existing vacant properties and preventing additional ones from coming on board. This is a top priority for us, and there is simply too much at stake for us not to be certain that we are taking every action possible to solve the problem of vacant buildings in Baltimore. Not only does this issue threaten the safety and health of our first responders, the city's large vacant housing stock impacts the overall economic health and vitality of our city and is a drain on many neighborhoods and communities. I acknowledge then and am acknowledging again now the incremental progress that has been made regarding vacants. We've seen a workable program emerge like Vacants to Value. The city is actually known and has been studied for its receivership model, and we've seen savvy and innovative developers launch viable projects that would not have been possible had there not been for an inventory of vacant properties to target. But it is still an issue that has persisted for far too long, I think longer than most of the council members have been alive, including myself. But we know we have to be sure that we are giving it the energy and determination it needs to impact long-term success for Baltimore. I want to thank all of the agencies tasked with the review for coming together and working together in earnest to review current strategies and provide comprehensive recommendations to strengthen our efforts. And now I'm going to turn it over to our city administrator, Chris Shorter, to discuss the review process and the recommendations that have come out of the review. Mr. Shorter?
All right, good morning, and thank you, Mayor Scott, for the introduction and for your clear and decisive leadership on this critical issue. As many of you know, on January 31st, Mayor Scott directed me to establish an interagency working group of senior leaders to review the regulations, operational and administrative procedures, systems that support how the city manages private and publicly owned properties. This directive emerged in response to the tragic loss of 3 firefighters and the serious injury of another, as they responded to a 2-alarm fire at a privately owned vacant property. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank the team of leaders and staff who answered the call to participate in the working group and played a key role in brainstorming, analyzing, and ultimately drafting a comprehensive and actionable set of long and short-term recommendations. Our Deputy City Administrator, Chichi Naaganash, our Deputy Mayor for Community and Economic Development, Ted Carter, our Deputy City Solicitor, Ebony Thompson, of course, our Housing Commissioner, Alice Kennedy, our Director of Finance, Director Henry Raymond, and our Director of Public Works, Jason Mitchell, and just a team of staff who participated in weekly in-depth discussions and multiple follow-up meetings to dive deeper into specific topic areas. The team met with both internal and external stakeholders to develop and finalize 50-plus actionable recommendations that will be published and tracked on our website alongside the Mayor's Action Plan Tracker. We know that the issue of vacant and abandoned properties is complex. and has persisted in our city for decades, as the mayor said, longer than many of us have been alive. As of March 11th, there were 14,952 vacant buildings in the city of Baltimore. Of those, 13,508 are privately held. The city's lack of title for privately owned vacant properties will require creative new partnerships between public and private sector entities to put units back into productive use. Tackling this problem will require significant financial and capital resources. The final recommendations by the work group were organized into key priority areas that encompass the full array of strategies which ultimately focus our collective effort and energy towards making meaningful progress in the reduction, abatement, remediation of vacant and blighted property. We organized the recommendations into several categories, including funding, investment, and legislative strategies, legal regulatory system improvements, vacancy prevention, and housing and neighborhood development strategies, as well as city operations, process, and service improvements. These strategies and improvements included a wide array of recommendations. By way of example, recommendations included an increase in focus on property tax sale prevention to assist homeowners in getting their property removed from the annual tax sale and provide some relief for unpaid property taxes. It also included increased investments or recommendations for increased investments in demolition, strategic stabilization of vacant properties, dedicated capital funding for developer incentives for rehabilitation of vacant properties. We also included preventing vacancies through expanding home ownership opportunities to renters and connecting legacy homeowners and older adults, including increased funding for our HUBS program to provide home repairs to seniors so that they can safely age in place. Implementing a review of the permit office, including all agencies that complete permit review, that is our Department of Transportation, Planning, Public Works, Health, Recreation and Parks, and Fire. We also recommended collaborating with the Circuit Court to explore a separate docket for tax lien foreclosure in condemnation cases. A separate court docket would shorten the timeline to acquire properties through tax sale foreclosure. I would like to just acknowledge and thank Councilwoman Ramos and City Solicitor Thompson, who have already begun to make great progress with the circuit courts to create a separate docket. We also recommended strategies that will make it easier to purchase city-owned property by decreasing the processing time for city payments to appraisal vendors, providing clear communications about the disposition process, and where possible, implementing fixed pricing models for city-owned vacant properties. We've recommended title process improvements, including increasing the city-approved fee for title work and expanding the list of approved title attorneys. And we've also included stepped-up cleaning and securing of properties, prioritizing vacant properties that receive more than one cleaning or boarding request in a calendar year. Again, these are just some of the recommendations and the great work done by the multi-agency team of staff. The vacant property work group will continue to meet frequently to ensure that the recommendations put forth to the mayor are implemented and that all relevant agencies appropriately prioritize the work in their operations. I would like to again thank the team involved and thank the mayor for his leadership, and I'll turn it back over to the mayor now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Administrator. I was pleased with the recommendations put forward and am prepared to advance many of these great ideas contained within those findings. I want to thank Councilwoman Ramos for her help with working with the many suggestions, working with the administrator to how to tackle this issue as well. We are going to focus on the task at hand right away. And on top of the announcement we are making today, and plan on making additional measures to accelerate existing processes and additional programs to comprehensively address the issues surrounding turning vacant properties into a productive use in the coming weeks. I want to thank Deputy Mayor Carter and all the agencies, everybody who worked on fielding these recommendations, the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, Deputy Solicitor Thompson, our Fire Chief Niles Ford. Mr. Chief, where are you? I know you're here. There you go. Director Raymond and Director Mitchell. And as you can see, this is no small undertaking, but we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to put our best foot forward and tackle blight while also providing safe, affordable, and accessible housing for all of our residents. The American Rescue Plan is 1 year old today, and what an important day to be here on the 1 year anniversary. And it has given us that opportunity, the chance to write upon decades of generational harm when it comes to housing. COVID-19 shed a brighter light on many of these things that so many of us inequities faced by folks in our city that we knew for many, many years. And when it comes to job losses, lower wages and income, health, and as we're discussing here today, housing, the pandemic widened many of these inequities, and ARPA is helping us respond to these negative impacts with solid resources that can help our most vulnerable residents. Being able to invest these funds to address vacancy and abandonment and affordable housing needs in communities disproportionately impacted by health and economic consequences of the pandemic is beneficial for communities across the country and is a huge win for Baltimore. Today, I am announcing the allocation of $100 million in ARPA funding to protect residents, prevent blight, create affordable housing initiatives and implement vacancy recommendations made through this 30-day directive to address Baltimore's vacant housing stock. Of that $100 million, $39 million are dedicated to address vacants in Baltimore. This is about taking actions that fulfill our commitments to our residents around fostering home ownership, housing affordability, and housing insecurity within Baltimore's historically red line neighborhoods. This ARPA investment, we can clap for that. This ARPA investment is a key step towards holistically addressing the issue of vacant properties, housing loss, and housing instability across Baltimore, all issues which exacerbate public health disparities and contribute to negative economic impacts. I want to grow that commitment to vacants to $50 million as a down payment on our strategy to eliminate and prevent blight in this city, working together with partners like Build, who we are so blessed to have here with us today, and other leaders who are here with us today. In light of the recommendations put forward by City Administrator Shorter and our agencies, we have set aside funding for many things. Impact investment areas, which we all know we have identified as our long disinvested areas where we can build assets and address blight with expanded capital investment. Support for our legacy homeowners and helping to build value in middle neighborhoods, which will prevent potential future vacancies. Assisting seniors in charting a course for them to remain in their homes as long as possible, and wrapping services around them and support that will help with solar energy while expanding our workforce development opportunities in Baltimore. Improving our long outdated city permitting process to make it easier to rehabilitate vacant properties and bring them back into productive use. Rather than seeing them remain a drain on neighborhood health and safety. Creating new opportunities for affordable housing for people currently renting, and we are focused on strategic redevelopment, which near 21st century schools, in which we have done about 28 of those over the last few years, and many more to come in communities that are positioned for near transformation. And also, actually, no, I got Councilman Torrance in my thing. I reckon I got him.
Give him a shout out again, man.
Just do another quick shout out to Councilman James Torrance, better known in the second floor of City Hall as Jace's father. So we'll do it that way. And standing up programs that provide tenants with access to legal services when facing a possible eviction to reduce the threat of housing instability. Standing here at Uplands, where we are today, demonstrates why these ARPA funds are so critical to moving our city ahead. This is a large site where both the building infrastructure and housing infrastructure is hundreds of millions of dollars. And getting these in place has caused this project to stall for many, many years. I think we all have driven past here over the past few years, and you can see what is possible in front of us. And we can see that and how this has just been sitting here as vacant land for far too long. ARPA is the spark that gets this and many other projects that you will hear about today moving. Over the next couple of years, you will see apartments start to line Emerson Avenue, and after that, single-family housing for sale. This will continue to be a mixed-income community with affordable housing for our most vulnerable and our middle-income families. Many might ask, we can clap for that. Many might ask, why is this important? Because next to us, behind us, and up the street from us are strong, high-market neighborhoods that are out of reach for many residents here in Southwest Baltimore. The city has a need for affordable rental and for sale housing in all of our neighborhoods, and supporting affordable housing and creating stable neighborhoods is critical to our mission and ARPA's mission of assisting our impacted residents and communities. And when I set my pillar goals and introduced our action plan, it was these same concerns that brought that to action. We place an emphasis on equitable neighborhood development and clean and healthy communities, and announced how we wanted to increase capital investment and ensure equitable access to services in formerly redlined neighborhoods, identify and stabilize vacant structures adjacent to occupied properties to prevent additional vacancies, stabilize communities, and bring new homeowners to Baltimore's neighborhoods, in which we know will help us reduce public health disparities by decreasing environmental hazards. This announcement is about taking actions that will fulfill our commitments to our residents around fostering home ownership and addressing blight, vacant properties, our housing affordability issues, housing insecurity issues within our neighborhoods that we know in Baltimore have been left behind for far too long, and dare I say, on purpose. It is broken down. It is broken down into 3 target areas: strategic capital investments, which is $56.3 million. This ARPA allocation leverages a significant private sector investment in each of these critical projects, which are Tivoli and Coldstream Homestead Montebello, Park Heights and the Park Heights Master Plan. Here in Uplands, where we are today, O'Donnell Heights in Southeast Baltimore. And last but certainly not least, the Perkins Somerset Old Town Transformation Plan area. And this investment, which will result in completed projects by the end of my first term for projects that have been stalled for far too long. As we know, this work will be done in partnership with developers who buy into our shared vision for equitable neighborhood development. Patrick Stewart and Penrose will team up with us for this great project here in Uplands. Mark Washington and the folks in Chum will team up with Urban Green LLC for our Tivoli project. That Mark, actually, I'm going to take a little break here. Mark sent me a picture last night that I didn't even know he had. One of my first speaking engagements in city government was as a staffer at the demolition on Tivoli. And Mark sent a picture at that event with Housing Commissioner Graziano, Councilwoman for Life, Mary Pat Clark, and him and myself. And it really brought that that full circle to say that we're now at a point where we'll be able to see that project come to fruition, because that was in 2007. And Manser and NHP will take on the lead on the project, along with Park Heights Renaissance and Mr. Henson and my beloved Park Heights. And of course, we are continuing to work with HBAC and all of our partners around Perkins, Somerset, Old Town, and the Transformation Plan, which is one of the biggest capital project commitments of this investment, and will generate a high number of housing units for our most vulnerable residents, replacement of public housing, plus net new units and affordable and mixed income. And we talked about blight prevention earlier today, but I'll go into some details with that one. The programs and projects that will work from that $39 million to address our vacant housing stock will help reduce public health disparities and also reverse the trend of negative equity in the city's middle neighborhoods, where moderate income black and brown residents make up the majority of our homeowners. Resident protection and anti-displacement, which is $4 million. Workers in low-income households were more likely to lose their job or see pay reductions during the COVID-19 public health emergency. These projects provide legal services and utility assistance to prevent eviction and displacement, to mitigate housing instability with our low-income populations. We want to make a definitive, measured impact on our city through a lens of equity, and when it comes to housing, we must continue to open the door to inclusion and help our most vulnerable residents in every way possible. And we would not be here today if it were not. I say all the time when I gather with mayors from around the country that I know they don't all have it as easy as I do, because I have the best federal delegation in the United States of America. We would not be here today without all the members of our delegation. I want to thank our senators, Senator Cardin and Senator Van Hollen. I want to thank our Congressman Rupensberger, my congressman. I want to also thank Congressman Sarbanes. But we know that here in Baltimore, we have Congressman Mfume back. We are so happy to have him back in the United States Congress. And I cannot overstate how much I personally appreciate your leadership, our partnership, your friendship, your mentorship, but the work that you have done on ARPA, on the infrastructure bill, to make sure that we are building Baltimore City in a new, equity-based way so that we can be the best version of ourselves. And with that, I will turn it over to our Congressman Kwesi Mfume.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My very efficient staff thought that they would give me some notes, but I really want to talk from the heart. That's just the way I am. So thank you, as a great philosopher once said, for letting me be myself again. All attribution to Sly Stone. Mr. Mayor, I'm just glad to be here. I'm going to tell a little story and then get out of the way. There's a lot more to be shouted about and talked about and lauded here. I do want to thank all of the members of the City Council for their presence, particularly Councilman Burnett, since we are here in the 8th District. And I want to say hello also to Councilman Stokes, who I assume now is the Dean of the Council, for having lasted so long. I've got a story for members of the Council and then a charge. Let me also thank all of the community organizations here and all those developers in the city like Dan Henson and others who've worked to get housing back up front as a priority. Yes. This mayor has made it a priority, and we're going to see it through. Now, I do want to say to the members of Build, and do my public confession when I'm around you, you are my favorite advocacy group. Really. And having said that, let me just call the name of Reverend Douglas Miles, who for 30, 40 years gave his heart and soul for the principles, programs, practices, position, and for the evolution of Build. This is significant because this is about housing equity. It's about the ability for communities to come back to life again. It's about the dignity and the worth and the value that families need, and they need it first through their housing stock and through an effort to make sure that their communities are highlighted. This is so very, very important. I cannot thank enough Senator Ben Cardin, Senator Chris Van Hollen, Congressman Sarbanes, Congressman Rupertsberger. We are a team. We call ourselves in the Congress Team Maryland. And because of our seniority, we are in key positions. And so a year and a half ago, when this was only an idea in the minds of a few of us, we got together, worked through our respective committees, carved out a huge $641 million package for Baltimore. We dared the doomsayers who said this will never happen. We worked through the appropriation process. We got it in the initial round. We fought to keep it in every step of the way. And as you just heard, 1 year ago today, the Congress passed and the President signed the American Rescue Act. And please say that when you talk about this, okay? Because people may not know what ARPA is. Folks in the street just want to know they're being rescued from where they were, and that's what this legislation and this appropriation does. It's so very, very, very significant. I can't even begin to underscore what it means. Now, 43 years ago, some of you were around, 43 years ago, a much younger version of myself raised my hand and took the oath of office to be a part of this city council. Some of the vacants that are standing today were standing 43 years ago. That is sinful, should never happen. And so I stayed, and before I left, we were working on significant, I thought, legislation to work with the judicial system and the courts, to work with every legal process we had, to go after private owners who continue to take a tax write-off and do nothing at all with the houses. And they languish there, and they languish there. Many of them were living in Florida and Texas and in New England. And so it pains my heart to have to know that here 43 years later, we are still working on this issue. So I believe in this council. I'm going to charge this council to pick up where I left off at to get elected to the Congress, and that is to come up with significant legislation that significantly empowers the city and the mayor to do things in a significant way to deal with absentee owners who are creating a significant problem for all of us. You can do it, council. You can do it. And as somebody 43 years later looking at this issue, I'd like to go to my grave knowing that you did do it and that we are really taking a step to follow up on this initiative. So this $100 million appropriation or more out of the 640 is good. It's going to the right thing at the right time. And again, I want to commend all of you who have worked so hard in agencies and elsewhere. Don't lose the vision on this. Don't let it drop. Don't let it slide back. Be even more aggressive in making sure that we do what we ought to do as a city for those young people today who 43 years from now want to live in a neighborhood not surrounded by vacants. Thank you.
I think the most appropriate thing to say after a congressman speaks most times is amen. Amen. And thank you so much, sir, for always being here. And thank you for channeling Bishop Miles, not just in name, but in what you said. As the members of BUILD know, shortly before Bishop Miles passed, he and I had our last lunch. And what we're talking about today is a direct result of that luncheon challenge that he gave to me and to the members of BUILD on how we can tackle this issue. Now I'd like to turn it over to our Housing Commissioner, Alice Kennedy.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. After this week, this is a beautiful morning to come out and have the mayor make all of these wonderful announcements about the work that we're doing here in Baltimore City. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank CAO Shorter, Deputy Mayor Carter, Director Kearney. I just want to say that these are critical resources at a very critical time. I want to thank you, Congressman Infumi, and our entire federal delegation for securing these resources for Baltimore City. It took a lot of public advocacy to ensure that the American Rescue Plan Act funds would be available for issues related to vacant and abandoned housing. Shedding greater light on how racial inequity and historic disinvestment has a lingering effect on communities and impacts our public health, our public safety, and was in and of itself a welcome victory. Having funding follow to support the necessary work to redress these issues helps us respond in a meaningful way to the negative economic blow of COVID-19 on these impacted communities where the pandemic only amplified challenging conditions. We must fight for these communities and create new opportunities. To build healthier environments, we have to address the vacant inventory and provide housing and home ownership options. It's a holistic approach, not just to the built environment, but to the humans that inhabit and live in that built environment. Here in Baltimore, we're fortunate to have dedicated partners in this work. I want to take time to acknowledge Director Chris Ryer of the Planning Department, Executive Director Janet Abrahams of the Housing Authority of Baltimore City, Executive Director Annie Milley of Live Baltimore, as part of that holistic approach that we are announcing today. On behalf of my colleagues, our agencies, our staff stand committed and excited to carry forth the mayor's charge. The investment made today helps us move forward on many fronts. We'll further our work on resident protection and anti-displacement. We'll bring more capital investment to our impact investment areas. We'll support legacy homeowners and help build wealth in our middle neighborhoods. We'll bring additional resources to our seniors and our older adults through the work with our Housing Upgrades to Benefit Seniors program. We will increase home ownership opportunities with our partners like Live Baltimore. And we will advance development projects that will stabilize communities and create necessary affordable housing units like those in Perkins, Somerset, Old Town, Uplands, Park Heights, and Tivoli. I want to also share that we are focused on process improvements, and the need for those process improvements were highlighted during the mayor's 30-day vacancy review. We want the process of obtaining and improving vacant city-owned property to be more inviting for those who want to take advantage of the opportunity to invest in Baltimore. And with that, today, I'm pleased to announce that as of this afternoon, we are launching Buy Into Be More, a new single access point for constituents, anyone in the city of Baltimore. Homeowner, if you want to be a homeowner and live in a city-owned vacant property that you want to rehabilitate, if you're a developer looking to invest, anybody that wishes to purchase a vacant city-owned property or vacant land to apply to purchase city-owned property through our open bid program and our newly redesigned website, Buy Into Be More. We're confident that Buy Into Be More will help move vacant buildings back into productive use expediently, and we'll be sharing more about our Buy Into Be More program moving forward. But for those that are ready to engage and ready to get with us on this work today, visit buyintobemore.baltimorecity.gov, and let's get started now. Mr. Mayor, CEO Shorter, Deputy Mayor Carter, Director Kearney, Build, thank you again for your leadership, and thank you for helping us direct these funds in the way that is going to make the largest single impact on residents' lives in the city of Baltimore that we have seen in housing to date. It is my honor, I am grateful, and I am humbled to serve as your housing commissioner at this time. DHCD and all of the partners mentioned here today are ready to continue this important work and to support the efforts, and are grateful for the support of everyone that is here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner, and thank you for your dedication to our residents each and every day. Now we are going to hear from Mr. Arthur Cummings, a recipient of our Housing Upgrades to Benefit Seniors program, to talk about what this investment means for our residents. Mr. Cummings.
Thank you, Mayor. My pleasure. Good afternoon to all that's here. The American Rescue Plan has been very beneficial to me, and I am very proud that I have been able to be a recipient of this program. The people who has been working on this program has been very proficient in what they do. They've gotten back to me in a very timely fashion. They have reviewed the work. The inspectors has come out to review the work that was done in my home, and I do live here in this community right here. So I can speak of the transition that this community has been going through for the last several years. And as you all know, it takes a whole community to raise a village. But also, we have to live in this village. And the dwelling that we live in has to be appropriate. And the American Act plan here has been able to provide those meaningful funds for people who meet certain income requirements. Those requirements will help us to update our home as it is done for me. I moved into the house and found out later on that my gas line leading into the house was corroded. And this was notified to me in the month of September. So due to the COVID pandemic and people not working, we had to go without heat for a great deal of time. We were finally able to get the gas lines installed, and at that point in time, we found out that my HVAC system was not working. That was about the middle of October. Good thing you were working, right? So, Mayor, I started to call on you. But to make a long story short, I enrolled into the American Act program. Within a period of a few hours, I received a text from Phoebe. She and then returned, made a visitation out to my house within 5 days after that. We then did through the process my documentation to prove who I was and financial documentations. Within 30 days after that, the AVAC system was being installed into the house. It only took them approximately about 9 hours to install the new HVAC system. And it was wonderful to hear the sound of heat coming out of there. Yes, sir. I'm from the old school, so you say, well, how did you keep warm, Mr. Cummings? Well, my mother and my grandmother always turned the stove on, the pilot light. And as God would have it, I had a brand new stove that put out a whole bunch of BTUs. So it heated the downstairs. But when you went upstairs, it was cold. So we had to invest into some circular heaters, which in return sent up the electric bill. But I'm not going to prolong my statement here. It's just that the program was very beneficial to getting the heating vac system in before Christmas. And as I speak right now, this program is now installing the roofing on my cupola in the front of my house on my roofing, so we won't have the leaks. So the program is ongoing. And Mr. Mayor and Commissioner, I want to thank you for your vision of having this be able to go through. And I hope that this program will continue, because it's going to be very beneficial for us in this community, not only in this community, but other communities for this program. So those who have not enrolled in it, please go online, review it, and speak to my seniors, please do this. And I want to thank everyone once again.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. And HUBS, Housing to Upgrades to Benefit Seniors, or HUBS as we call it, is a great program through the Housing Department, and you can get that information on the Housing Department's website. And Mr. Cummings, it's been about 16 years since I did any HVAC work, but I would have come if you called me. For sure, I would have come. And thank you. We want to ensure that our residents, especially our older residents, are able to stay in their homes. And you heard it from Mr. Cummings himself. This is why these kind of things are important, and why we're putting a significant portion of this ARPA allocation into HUBs, so that we can expand that reach for seniors across our city, and while we expand home ownership opportunities for black middle-class residents and provide affordable housing opportunities. This is how we grow Baltimore, and engage with our development community and do that development without displacement so that our city can truly become the best version of itself. This is how we can truly be more, by doing more things through a lens of equity. And with that, we will now take questions. Hold on, let me make sure. There's no mic. Oh, mic's over there, my bad. I got you.
Mayor Scott, just talk to us about what this investment means for folks, absentee owners.
Hold on.
Okay.
I heard it coming. I don't want it to be over top of it.
It's all good. We'll just stand here and wait.
I think that's the county's helicopter.
Just talk to us about what this will mean for absentee owners.
Well, listen, as you heard from the administrator, this is a dual thing, right? We're going to have this new focus through the recommendations from our 30-day review, where we will look at ways to go after those owners in more deep ways in partnership with our council, in partnership with our legal abilities from the law department and the housing department. This is about tackling this issue of vacancy and housing in its totality. And what it's going to mean for them is that they know we're going to be applying pressure in every way that we can. You heard us talking about trying to do a specific docket to deal with vacant properties through the circuit court. We have to attack it that way.
Absolutely. My last question for you, message to those who haven't had access up until this point. How soon can they expect to have access to housing due to this funding?
Well, listen, we know that this is going to be, I can see Mr. Henson and other folks smiling. Mr. Henson actually asked me, say, when can I cash the check so we can get started the other day? We're expecting these things to start very soon, and when you get this money out to the appropriate partner so that we can get that work going.
Good afternoon, everyone. As of yesterday, there were 4,513 homeowners on the city's tax sale list. And so that is up 700 homes from last year. And with this investment, with the half funds, we're not seeing, as an advocate, we're not seeing communication and outreach between the city and the state to make sure that this $100 million and the $280 million in half funds and the state's apparent $7.9 billion surplus aren't being appropriately leveraged to make sure that not one of the 4,513 homeowners should lose their home, but more importantly, that those debts should be cleared. What is being done to make sure that is the case?
Yeah, Nika, so you know that I've been very clear about making sure that through the tax sale process that we focus on those homeowners. I'll make sure that we get the administrator and the team to reach out to you directly about what things that they're working on in partnership with the councilwoman and others to make sure that we are going intensively after those homeowners to make sure the folks don't lose their house. Now, discussions about the state surplus, I would say that we can have that will be discussions you should reach out to the governor and his folks on what they're planning to do around home ownership and protecting folks, and also the General Assembly, but mainly him.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Could you or somebody from your team talk about the cost for stabilizing or demolishing, just to get a sense of how many homes could be impacted with this money?
Yep, I'll let the commissioner go through that.
So the cost to stabilize a vacant property can range anywhere from $40,000 to $80,000, depending upon the size of the property. And when we talk about stabilization, we're talking about taking care of major functions like the roof, typically kind of some of the immediate framing in the house that stabilizes it, that prepares it for reinvestment for the next stage. And then in terms of demolition, we're in a average cost when you include everything, including environmental testing, environmental remediation, you come out in the $35,000 to $65,000 range. So it is a significant investment per property. We know that we're going to have in our impact investment areas where we're going to be focusing a lot of this work based on the block level community planning. We'll be moving forward to make swift use of the funds to execute with those demolition, stabilization, developer incentives, home repairs, etc.
What goal does the city have in terms of getting through as much of that vacant housing stock as possible?
Yeah, like we said today, this is just the down payment on that. Like we're trying to eliminate, we want to eliminate around 5,000 of them over a period of time, right? We want to go that. But when you think about what's happening, I think you have to think about this from both sides, right? We're also eliminating vacants by preventing seniors from losing their homes, right? From preventing people from being put out on the street, from creating new home ownership opportunities and the things that are going to happen through these developments. This is how you'll tackle that issue from top to bottom.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm great.
Good. Given the new information that we learned yesterday in the superseding indictment of the top prosecutor, Marilyn Mosby, including the possibility of shuffling money around by the council president, do you still have confidence and do you trust him to handle this job, and do you think he should step down while this investigation plays out?
Mackenzie, I don't think no one's here shocked that you guys are off topic, but I'll start by saying what I always said. When you talk about city government, the Board of Estimates, the City Council is bigger than one person. What I will be focused on is making sure that I do my job and that I am making sure that we handle the city's finances as the chief executive who's actually in charge of the city's finances, that we do that in an appropriate way so that you can see that that improvement is being made. And while investigations happen with like any other criminal indictment and investigation, we will sit back and watch what happens and let the justice system do its part. We have a U.S. attorney in Eric Barron who is fabulous. He and his folks will be able to handle that in the appropriate time, and while we will be focused on making sure that the city government moves forward.
I understand that. Nick Mosby's not facing any charges right now. Can you square these comments from when you called for the resignation of Catherine Pugh before she was indicted?
So again, we're talking about two different situations. I'm focused on what we are doing in city government today. We're here talking about $100 million in investment, $39 million for vacant properties. That's what we're talking about today. That's what we're going to continue to be focused on to move Baltimore forward.
So he should not step down?
Next. Alexa.
Hi. As you know, Mayor, shots were fired in the Inner Harbor yesterday afternoon. How concerning is this to you, and what would you say to people who may be apprehensive to go to this area, an area known where tourists often go?
I think, Alexa, that anytime shots are fired anywhere, that should be concerning. And what I would remind you again is that we know that people coming downtown. We know that your station didn't want to cover it, but we had the CIAA tournament downtown. People from all over the country showcasing the black excellence of the CIAA and Baltimore, and we didn't have any one single incident there, hosting the third largest basketball tournament in the country this side of the ACC and the Big East. We will continue to go after, as you and I are talking here today. Our homicide detectives have cleared 62% of the cases. We will continue to hold people accountable and turn them over to the other parts of the justice system, and we will continue to make sure we have seized over 200 guns in this calendar year alone. We will continue to do our part to hold people responsible, but I would just hope that one day you guys get around to asking the folks who are in charge of the prisons and other things, what do they do with these same people that we keep arresting? Do they just hold them in there for 5, 6, 7 years and don't try to retrain them or give them opportunities to improve their lives? The same questions that you guys ask me, you should be asking the folks who actually have to deal with these folks after we arrest them. Our police department does a fabulous job. We have to look at the system in its entirety.
I hear what you're saying about the CIAA. I think that's a positive thing. I just want to reiterate, I'm speaking about the shooting yesterday.
Well, look, first again, it wasn't a shooting. No one was shot. So let's start there. So it wasn't a shooting. No one was shot. As I said before in my initial response to you, anytime guns are shot anywhere, right, it's a concern. It doesn't matter if it's downtown, uptown, or around town. Anytime someone is shooting their gun, and it's about holding those people accountable. It's about having conversations about why we have things like ghost guns, as you know, that we're trying to ban in Maryland, that we shouldn't be able to. It shouldn't be easier for someone to order a gun online and make it in their house than it is for me to get my allergy medicine from CVS. Those are the kind of things that we need to be talking about. Why is it that 60% of the guns that we recover in Baltimore come from other states, and 84% of them come from places not known as Baltimore City? We have to talk about that issue in its totality. Thank you. Emily? Just one half of Emily squared today.
Yeah, the other one's not here. Given, one of the reasons that we're here today is we had this awful deadly fire that killed several firefighters. So I'm curious if the city is currently tracking the number of fires that happen in vacant buildings, and if that was used to inform the planning around the way that some of this money was going to be spent.
So, yeah, thank you, Emily. Great question. I would say that we were well into discussions about this housing ARPA announcement when we had that tragedy that caused us to take a step back and look at other things. I know the chief and his folks have been teamed for me about looking, and he's doing a review about how we're tracking fire issues with vacants, but also all of our policies, and he's doing that internal review. I'll let him step up to talk more about that. But yes, it did impact what we're thinking about clearly when you lose 3 people who are literally trying to and did prevent other folks from being harmed. Mr. Chief?
We're currently in talks with the housing commissioner, certainly the mayor, in order to make the situation more safe for our folks. And quite frankly, this investment I'm very excited about because it is certainly going to make it safer for our members and safer for our community. So I don't have the statistical numbers, but we are tracking now. We have begun tracking vacant fires.
So if we are tracking that information, I'm just curious why that has been unable to be provided to the media. There was a request put in more than a month and a half ago, and that information has not been provided by the city at this point.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we get you that information post-haste. And I will say, Emily, as you know, we discussed many times, there were many things that should have been tracked in the city for many, many years that weren't being tracked. And we have to make sure now that we're doing that in a much deeper way. Thank you.
My name is Joe Richardson, and I represent the Evanston Midtown community. And I heard a lot of good things that were spoken today, and I reflect back to the community that I represent. And to be honest with you, Mayor, I need your help, and I would love to meet you, talk to you, and get to know you, and tell you the problems that we have and the things that are happening in the community. Because we have the Frederick Douglass tunnel coming through.
Mm-hmm.
We have the MARC train station at West Baltimore. It's being revitalized. And we just need to have community input. And we need to have that input directly with you. So whenever you have time, I'd like to meet you, sir.
Absolutely. Done deal, sir. And that when you talk about Frederick Douglass Tunnel, it wouldn't be just with me, it would be with the congressman and our federal partners as well. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you, everybody.